Hey guys, Noah here. Welcome back to my channel. But if you guys are new here, then hello, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you guys a few things that I wish I knew about houseplants before getting into houseplants. I'm no exception and I made so many mistakes, many of which you guys let me know here on YouTube in the comment sections, and I actually really appreciate it because I learned so much learning about houseplants, and I'm really excited to share with you guys just a few of the things that I wish I knew when I first got into them, because I definitely made a ton of mistakes. So let's hop right into the video. So the very first thing I learned, it was actually from YouTube. I did a video repotting my Monstera Deliciosa and you guys let me know that the pot was way too big for the plant, and I kind of doubted you guys a little bit. I shouldn't have, but I was like, oh, I think it'll be fine. And sure enough, a few weeks later, the plant started to struggle and I did end up down potting it after a few months, I believe. So you guys were definitely right. You definitely don't want to pot your plants up in pots that are just way too big. Now, there are a few exceptions to the rule, as there always are. Like elephant ears, I find you can pot up in bigger pots and they love it. There's a few plants that can, but a lot of house plants, like especially Hoyas and stuff, they actually like to be root bound. So you don't want to up pot them too soon or into pots that are just far too big for them. If you do pot them in a pot that's way too big, they will focus on their root growth and they will not have a new leaf for years, it could be. So you definitely don't want to make that mistake like I did. Definitely make sure to do your research and just go one pot size up at a time. If it's in a 4-inch pot, put it in a 5-inch pot. If it's in a 5-inch, put it in a 6-inch, and then you just won't have any issues that way. So that's my first piece of advice. The second one is another one that you guys kind of told me in the comment section. You guys were like, why are all your house plants just sitting on the shelf with no saucers? And at that time, I only had like 10 to 15 plants, so it wasn't really a big deal. I would just once a week move them to my kitchen and give them all a nice drink of water from the sink, and then I would put them back. But as my collection grew, I realized that you guys are right, and I definitely had to get some saucers. I mean, these are the saucers I'm talking about. They're super cheap. They're like a few cents, you know, 50 cents, 60 cents at Home Depot and Lowe's. I just put that word together and made hose. So you just get them at Home Depot or Lowe's or wherever Walmart has them. So these are just so good to have underneath your plant so that when you do water your plant on a shelf, water won't spill everywhere. It'll just collect in these little saucers. So I did end up switching over and doing that. If I don't have a saucer on my plant, it's because it's in a cache pot. And what I mean by a cache pot is it's in a ceramic pot with the nursery pot inside of it, so that way if it's overflowing with water, it'll just sit in the pot. So that's what I mean by cover pot. So yeah, all my plants have either a saucer or a cover pot, because now I have like 100 plants. It's way too much to take it all the way to my sink and water them one by one, so I do water them at the shelf that they're on. Definitely need saucers. Should have done it a little bit sooner, because I definitely messed up a few of my wooden shelves with water. They just have water damage and there's no fixing it. So I would definitely have started that sooner had I really known. All right, the third thing is don't overwater, and this is so much easier said than done. To this day, I still am an overwaterer, never an underwaterer really. Having a moisture reader really helped me out with not overwatering. In the beginning, I actually did overwater quite a bit and lose a lot of plants to root rot. I specifically remember like a Schefflera, a Calathea, and definitely a few other plants that I lost to root rot. So overwatering is like the first no-no in the plant world. You don't want to overwater. Get yourself a moisture reader. Honestly, even if you have one plant, like, you need it. You can't really tell with the finger test. Love my moisture reader. I use it to this day. I use it on every plant in my home. Like if I have a plant shelf with like, this plant shelf has like, I don't know, 15 plants, I'll stick it in every single plant, figure out which ones need to be watered, remember them, and then come back and water just those like 3 or 4 that needed to be watered. So that's just how I do it, and I definitely recommend having a moisture reader. The fourth thing is kind of funny and kind of a joke, but kind of not. Don't buy Calatheas. Now, I wish I knew it sooner, because I spent a pretty penny on a lot of Calatheas. I had so many different kinds. I had some rare ones, and I just love the look of them, right? They're gorgeous. They always capture your attention, and for good reason. They're just stunning, stunning plants. And all beginners want Calatheas because of how they look. So I definitely don't recommend it for beginners at all. I've killed every single Calathea I've ever had, and to this day I have no Calatheas in my collection. Like, I still want them, but I remind myself, Noah, don't buy a Calathea because they just are so difficult and I have not mastered it. When I see people with Calatheas and they're like successful and they are growing and they've had it for a long time, I literally think in my head, I'm not even joking, I'm like, wow, are they God themselves? Because how did they do that? It's impossible. Like, I don't know how they did it. No matter how many videos I watch, no matter how much research I do, I just cannot keep a Calathea alive. I've tried so many times and now I just know, don't try anymore. So that's gonna be my fourth tip, but obviously you could take it with a grain of salt. You could still try it out for yourself, but I definitely don't recommend them for beginners at all. All right, so this next one is huge. I never knew this before getting into plants, and I really wish I did, and that is never let two different plants leaves touch. And this is because if one of them gets a pest, the other one will have it automatically. If they're not touching and they're more spaced apart, you're much more likely to have just one of the plants have the pest and the other one not, especially with things like spider mites, aphids. They crawl from one plant to another if the leaves are touching. So if they're not touching, you're probably going to be fine. So on my plant shelves, even though they're super crowded, I try to position them so that the leaves are never touching. And obviously it happens sometimes and the leaves do touch. It's not gonna be the end of the world, but I do try to make sure that they're not touching. There's a few times where I have found spider mites in my collection and I check all the plants around them and I say, thank God the leaves were not touching, because it's only the one plant that has it. So it's definitely worked out to my benefit, and I wish I had known it right from the beginning. In the beginning of my plant journey experience, I would get spider mites on like 5 or 6 plants at a time every single time I had spider mite outbreaks, and I would literally sit in the bathtub just trying to pick them off one by one. Not pick them off, but like brush them off one by one. So now that I know to not have the leaves touch, usually when I find a spider mite outbreak, it's only on one plant and it's easy to get rid of. So this next one is courtesy of my boyfriend. He told me this. He said that he wishes, like, looked up the care of certain plants before buying them, because there was a lot of times we would just buy plants that look nice. Want to expand your collection, so you're just buying, but not really knowing the care, and you can't assume that every single plant has the same care. So he was saying that he wishes he had looked some up beforehand, because there were some times where we did not look up plant care and then the plant would die, and then we'd look up the care for that plant after the fact, and then we'd be like, oh, we should have done that, and then we'll buy that plant again. So it's just kind of like a waste of money, and we should have just done it from the get-go, looked up the plant before we buy it, and now I make sure that I do my research before buying a new plant. All right, so the next two things aren't like major things, but I do wish I would have known them, and one of them is having a moss pole. I just thought you get a moss pole when you want your plant to climb upwards, and that's that. You put the pole in the pot and you're done. But you actually have to water the pole, and I had no idea about that. And it makes sense because, like, for example, this pole is made from sphagnum moss. It's like 100% sphagnum moss, and why would the plant stick to it if it's just dry sphagnum? That would never happen. So literally every single day I have to spray this with my spray bottle, and it actually has made the aerial roots start attaching to the pole. And it's kind of crazy because I do really have to spray it every single day. The moss dries out super fast. If you're in a more humid environment, it won't dry out as fast, but where I am, it's very humid. It's very dry indoors because of air conditioning and all that stuff. So I do have to spray it daily, but it's really no big deal. It's right next to my dining room table, so I walk by it every single day that I eat. And I just quickly spray it. I keep the spray bottle right next to it, so it's really easy. And I only have like 2 or 3 plants on a moss pole, so it's no big deal. So I wish I would have known that sooner, because I just had them there sitting, looking stupid, not attaching, and not knowing what I'm doing wrong. Didn't realize I had to water them. And then the last one is just something I've recently learned, actually. So I can't say that I've known this for a long time, but that is propagating in these little baggies and creating your own humidity, like greenhouse type of environment for the plant. It really helps keep sphagnum moist for a lot longer, and it doesn't dry out, and it really makes roots grow a lot faster. So for me, like having a plant shop and selling plants, I propagate all my own plants and grow them myself. Having a faster way to do it, it really makes a huge difference. It used to take me like 3 or 4 months to propagate one plant off of a cutting, and with this method it takes me like a month and a half, something like that. So I really am happy that I recently figured this out, and I just place them in sphagnum, put them in a bag, and I keep the bag halfway zipped so that there is still some airflow, but nothing like what it is on the outside, and it's still for the most part super humid inside. You can kind of see the condensation in the bag. So that's absolutely everything, things that I wish I knew before getting into houseplants. Let me know if you guys found any of these helpful, and if you have any other ideas for things you wish you would have known before getting into plants, definitely leave them in the comments down below. Like this video as usual, subscribe to my channel for new videos every single Thursday and Sunday, and with that all being said, I'll see you guys next time. Bye guys. Oh my god, I literally just dropped the moss pole off of this plant. Well, there's a mistake for you guys. Don't do what I did. There's now soil all over my carpet.